I'm Jonathan Whitcomb. This is June 4th, 2021. Looks like we're starting with the live stream. The title of this is The Ropen in Europe, Recent Pterodactyls. We'll deal with two countries, Italy and Spain, though there are other countries that do have sighting reports of modern pterodactyls, apparently. But we can only do this two countries today. So welcome, glad you're here. We will be getting on with a live chat later. It takes time for that to develop. I just briefly mention for those who are new to this concept of modern pterosaurs and the Ropen, that this is a sketch by the U.S. Marine Eskin Kuhn, who sketched this a few minutes after his sighting of these two flying creatures at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba in 1971. And we're very soon approaching the 50-year anniversary of that sighting. I spoke with Eskin just the other day, a couple weeks ago, and he's in good health. So I need to call him again and congratulate him. It's a 50-year anniversary coming up. So now, there's another sketch here that's drawn by Patty Carson, and this was a sighting in the same area of Cuba, Guantanamo Bay, but a few years earlier, around 1965. And she drew this sketch in more recent years. Unfortunately, she's passed away, unfortunately. But we're going to be getting into these. We can get right into it now, I think. Okay. I received this not many years ago. It was December 2019. Here's the thing about this report. It's from a video, a comment on a YouTube video on this channel, Protect Animal Life, that you're on now, this channel of YouTube. And here's what this person said. I just saw this same creature in Rome gliding back and forth over the buildings a week ago. I have searched the internet for days, and this is the closest image I have found. I don't see here what image that is, but probably one of the two you just saw. Let's see. It says, yes, it had a long tail, a long tail that fanned out at the tip. It was in Rome, Italy. I thought maybe it was Ohio, for Rome, Ohio or something. But no, it is Rome, Italy. There's like the Colosseum here. You can see the nice view of the Colosseum. So it says it was close to the Colosseum around 10 p.m. My girlfriend also witnessed this creature. It was about the size of a man, membrane-type wings, long tail, glided, not flapping its wings, went back and forth 3 times. Well, I was surprised, the Colosseum is ancient, and we think of dinosaurs and pterosaurs being ancient, but the animals don't care a hoot about what we think about being old or anything like that. They just do what they do, fly where they want to fly. And they are basically mostly nocturnal. I've been doing this research for 18 years now, and I've communicated with eyewitnesses from 5 continents of the earth and interviewed people from all over, including hundreds of eyewitnesses just from the United States. And these appear to be real animals, real flying creatures, not birds or bats, not misidentifications, and not hoaxes. So stay with us. We're going to also get into Spain. This is a desert in Spain. Let me get to the first one. This is a report I got. It wasn't something involving me communicating with an eyewitness. This one was another report via the Barcelona's La Vanguardia newspaper. The editor, Pierre Carbo, a resident of the city, Barcelona, the capital of Catalonia. Here it is. An anonymous citizen said, quote, I cannot help but to make known my surprise at this unusual event. Excuse me. On the evening, 28th of May, some residents of the Les Corts district were awakened by the unbearable crowing of a bird. It wasn't just any bird. Our astonishment was immense when we stepped out to the balcony to see the black silhouette of a bird of tremendous size. It perhaps measured between 3 and 5 meters, and I am not exaggerating, Numerous residents saw it, and numerous comments were made the next day. During the following weeks, the creature was seen day and night in various parts of the Catalonian capital and in locations such as Gavà, Sant-Joan-despí, Salou, Bellver del Penedès, and the region of Empordà. According to the eyewitnesses, the animal was dark, mainly black or gray, with a wingspan of between 3 and 15 meters, making loud crowing sounds in 3 different tones, and whose membranous wings were reminiscent of a prehistoric pterodactyl. Wow. A lot of people don't know about those. There's more than one newspaper report, I understand, and I believe, if I recall, it was more than one newspaper that was involved in covering these stories. But that last major maximum estimate for wingspan is incredible. 15 meters. That's approaching 50 feet or so. Whoa. Yeah, we have reports like that, of course, and we're now grateful that we have some people here, not necessarily on the chat yet, but we're going to be communicating on whatever subject people want to, basically, and grateful for those who return, who've been here before, and for those newcomers. I hope we have newcomers again today. These are the Friday afternoon live stream chats of the YouTube channel Protect Animal Life, and I'm Jonathan Whitcomb. This is June 4th, 2021. The title of this live stream is The Ropen in Europe, Recent Pterodactyls. Now, I've gotten better prepared for a couple other countries too, just from the top of my head, which is not as good as reading the reports, of course, but I do my best to remember. And it looks like we might have had a little difficulty with the chat. Let's see what is going on here. Okay, this stream will end shortly unless you restart it in your streaming software. Okay, we have a problem here. 15 minutes or so after. We're grateful for all those who will be participating. These are 2 sketches here with the subject being sightings in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, including the one right here by Patty Carson, and then, of course, down here, if you haven't heard about it, the sighting in 1971, approaching the 50-year anniversary, the sighting by Eskin Kun. And the sighting I covered a few minutes ago was from Rome, Italy, which was at 10 o'clock at night. And there were 2 eyewitnesses of that one. It was about the size of a man. It wasn't gigantic Ropen, but it was definitely a long-tailed pterodactyl, according to the eyewitnesses. Went back and forth about 3 times. And we have the 2 in Spain, the first one being in the newspaper reports. Let me get that again. Get back to Spain here. And I didn't realize it at first. You know, you've seen the musical, The Rain in Spain Stays Mainly on the Plain. That apparently there is a desert plain in Spain. And I didn't realize it till I got this email years ago and learned that, yeah, there is a sighting of a Ropen. They didn't call it Ropen at the time. The man that saw it described as a pterodactyl. He contacted me after he searched online and found my web pages. But yeah, it was not very large, as I recall. Let's see if I can get that up here, some more details. It was about, where is this wingspan on this? About 2 to 3 feet tip to tip. That's not a large Ropen, but it was a long-tailed creature. I could read a little bit about that. This is sighting number 2 in Spain. Last summer, some friends and I, I'm quoting, last summer some friends and I drove from England, where I lived, to Benicassim in East Spain near Los Desert del Balmas, I think, for a music festival. One night, while sitting on the ground by the tents, I saw what I first assumed was an owl gliding over the campsite. I assumed that because it was nighttime and obviously no other birds would be out, or things like nightjars, which this was not. It passed right over us, probably about 30 to 40 feet high, and as I watched it, I realized it was definitely no owl I'd ever seen before. It was the color of suede sand, looked like the same sort of texture as suede, i.e. no feathers. Had a long, thin tail and didn't flap once. I only saw it for a few seconds as the campsite was lit up, illuminating it from beneath. But it fairly quickly passed into the dark, out of the reach of the light. It wasn't as big as the ones you described from Papua New Guinea, but was 100% not a bird. I entertained the notion it could have been a fruit bat, despite there being none in the Spanish ecosystem, it would seem, but I haven't been able to find any species of fruit bat anywhere that has a long, straight tail, and I'm sure I'd recognize a fruit bat if I saw one. Yeah, no, it's not a fruit bat. He thinks a bat because no feathers is this covered is just regular skin, sort of. He didn't say naked skin, but that's basically what it means. So we welcome anybody that wants to join us. People are watching, I know. If you want to make a comment, feel free, or say, what in the world is going on here? What is going on? Is it modern pterodactyls? What is this? Yes, it's a long story. I've been doing this for 18 years, not live streams, it's just half a year on these live streams on this channel. But I've been doing the research for 18 years, and it's a serious subject. I have quite a few associates. I've lost track of how many persons I know who have been searching for these modern pterosaurs in different parts of the world. And right now we have Rex Yappy, a native of Papua New Guinea, who's been searching for a few years in places like Umboy Island in Papua New Guinea. We want to support him, so we will be organizing a nonprofit organization called Animal Discovery. This is just one page of the new website, the blog for it. But as soon as that's organized, we'll be able to then receive donations and be able to get things started and getting the expeditions better organized and funded and planned and just advised so that things are more successful than we've had in the past. But please feel free to join the chat. Usually it takes a while before the people that involved in the chat will be here. But we're, again, as I said, for those of you who are new, do you know it's approaching very soon, the 50-year anniversary of the sighting of the United States Marine Eskin Kun, who had his sighting at Guantanamo Bay in the middle of the day. A clear view of these two pterodactyls, as he called them. We now call this kind of animal Ropen. But his sighting was in clear day. It was at close range, and they were flying at fairly low altitude. So in other words, they were close to him when they flew by. He got a good view. He just concentrated so that he could remember the details, so that when he got back to his living quarters, he could get a paper and pencil and sketch out what he had seen. And that's what he did within minutes. So that's where we get this. It's our phone here. My wife will answer it, don't worry. So we do have, of course, the other sketch by Patty Carson here. And many of you already are aware of that. So if anybody wants to participate in the chat, feel free. So we did get into something unusual last week. We almost got into it. How does the platypus related to the Ropen? It's very indirect, but basically about 200 years ago, Europeans who knew about it suspected that the platypus of Australia couldn't be a real animal. It couldn't be real because it's a combination of a beak of a duck and a body of a mammal like a beaver. That's impossible. It couldn't be an animal like that. Well, guess what? They found out pretty soon that, yeah, it's a real animal. and the Ropen is a real animal. And people say, oh, it's impossible. There can't be an animal like the Ropen. You know, a head crest like a pterodactyloid and a long tail like a rhamphorhynchoid. Those are two different types of pterosaurs, but that's the way it is. Life can be strange sometimes, and the Ropen is strange in that sense. There's no doubt about the long head crest and the adults, the larger ones, not the smaller ones. The smaller ones don't have a head crest or have just a little nub of one for the younger ones. But yeah, it has that strange head crest, not curved in exactly the same way as some pteranodons had it, kind of some of the opposite direction sometimes, depending on the pteranodon fossil that's being examined, I guess. But the long tail is unmistakable with a flange or diamond shape or triangle shape or spade shape at the end of the tail. That's a rhamphorhynchoid. So as we get into this, thank you for joining us here, William Hudson. Could the Mothman be a pterosaur? The description of the creature sounds familiar. Well, thank you, William. Yeah, thank you for joining us here. And of course, it's a wonderful question. Mothman, is there a relationship? Well, yes and no. It depends on the particular sighting. There are different sightings that people might label Mothman, and I'd love to deal with particular sightings and see exactly what the people saw or thought they saw, and deal with that in this individual sightings. But it's, be aware of labels. Labels can be kind of tricky, slippery, and kind of it's like a very oily fish. You try to grab it and it just flips out of your hand, and you don't got it when you think you caught it, and you don't, and it's gone. But the Mothman is one of the cryptids in North America, like the Jersey Devil and others, which possibly in some sightings could very well be the Ropen. And the Ropen is the most common type of modern pterosaur there is, what people call pterodactyls. So thank you so much for joining us. Anybody else to come, please feel free. And we just got Jessica. Thank you very much for coming back, Jessica. Delighted that you're back with us. Jessica's been here before, and I'm doing great here. I'm not sick, really. I'm not sick. I have a eye problem, a little bit, just a minor problem I've had for most of my life, which just means that my eyes water when I do a lot of work and on the computer, reading, writing, and doing stuff, and my eyes get tired and they water, and then I have postnasal drip. So when I cough, it's not because I'm sick. I'm really not sick. There's a little postnasal drip I dealt with for the past 6 decades or so. But these sightings include one sighting 2 people had in Rome, Italy in recent years. And it was about the size of a man. It wasn't gigantic. It was 10 o'clock at night. And it was circling back and forth near the Colosseum. If those of you who know, I've never been to Rome. I've been to other parts of Europe, but never into Rome. But that's a good view of the Colosseum there. Flying back and forth. And of course, they were shocked. The Colosseum is ancient, and people think of dinosaurs and pterosaurs are ancient, but the animals don't care. They just fly where they want to fly. So this happened to be there. But we have other parts of Europe too, the desert in Spain, where there was a man who's from England, but he was visiting there for a music concert, and he saw a Ropen fly overhead. There was lighting there, so even though it was at nighttime, he was able to see it and see that it was not an owl, not a fruit bat, definitely a long tail. Yeah, he was surprised. He eventually was able to find me, contact me online, and report that. But here's a thing that I didn't get into last week on the live stream that I was supposed to. I didn't get to it. But what does a platypus have to do with a Ropen? Well, the platypus 2 centuries ago, people thought that they were impossible. There can't be that kind of animal in Australia or anywhere else, because it's just, a beak of a duck, a duck's mouth, and the body of a mammal like a beaver. No, it's just impossible. But eventually it was found out that yes, they are real. And the Ropen, now in recent years, people have been ridiculing as impossible. You know, the head crest of a pterodactyloid pterosaur and the long tail of a Rhamphorhyncho pterosaur. It's just nonsense, an amalgamation. But that's the way that animals are. And that's the way the Ropen is. It has when it's an adult, a large adult has a long head crest. When it's smaller and younger, it does not have a long head crest. It grows. Apparently, it grows over the lifetime of the animal, according to what I've learned from eyewitnesses in the last 18 years. 18 years of my studies and interviewing eyewitnesses around the world. Not all eyewitness sightings are the same, and you don't really expect that anyway. People see different things at different times, at different angles, in different circumstances, and they notice different things and they focus on it. So you don't have exactly the same, but you have certain details that come back in general over the overall sightings, and from people of different cultures and different backgrounds, different religions, different cultures, and different countries they come from, describing is pretty much the same thing. Though even there, not all modern pterosaurs are Ropens. Strange as that sounds, there is at least one other species that's not a Ropen that does not have that kind of long tail. But that's for another time, another of these Friday afternoon live stream chats. So let's get back to the chat section. We have Jessica. Sir, what's the topic today? It is the Ropen in Europe, recent pterodactyls, and this is June 4th, 2021 with this live stream. So we get into a little bit already about the sighting in Italy and two sightings, well, quite a few sightings in Spain. But I can get to other things, but I'll have to talk off the top of my head because I don't have anything printed out on other sightings in Europe tonight, this afternoon. But I see Jessica's. I'm very surprised that they have in Italy and Spain. Yeah, I was a little surprised too when I first got that message. So I think the Ropen could easily be seen in places like where the food stock is available in plenty. Yeah, I presume so. We have a lot to learn. And Jessica says, you know, scientists said that coelacanth is gone, yet it's been found in Mexico deep in the ocean. I don't know about Mexico. This is more like the Indian Ocean. I think is where basically you find it. As I recall, that's the place, and possibly Mexico. I don't know. I haven't heard about it. Mexico, the coelacanth. For those of you who don't know how to pronounce it, I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's coelacanth, though the spelling is kind of weird. But this is Protect Animal Life channel on YouTube. Caring enough to search for and protect modern pterosaurs, and there's more to it than that. We're getting into a nonprofit, Animal Discovery, the name of the nonprofit, and it's not yet organized, unfortunately. I'm trying to get it done. If you need to contact me, please use this form, and I'll try to have this on at other times during this chat so that you can contact me by email if you'd like to. Great for all those who are participating, and thank you so much for joining us. Jessica's been here before, and then William says, I appreciate the answer. Hello from Alaska, by the way. Alaska. I heard stories of large birds up here, but have never seen one. I live in Brownsville, Texas, too, and I've read about them being there. Oh, yeah, Brownsville. As I recall, isn't Brownsville in the southern part of Texas? Yeah, in the 1980s, maybe some in the 1970s, but I think it was more in the 1980s, there were many newspaper accounts of people seeing these huge, weird flying creatures, and some of them call them pterodactyls, as they were called. And there was a lot going on then, but the reason there was so much attention is not that the particular animals were there a lot at that time, at that place, but simply that the newspapers caught on to it and were covering it a lot at that time. There's still, just a few days ago, I got a report from Texas, from that part of Texas. It was the sighting itself was not this year. It was not many years ago, but it was fairly recent. But it's that same part of Texas, the southern part of Texas, down that area, Laredo, or north of Laredo, somewhere in that part of Texas. So we do have sighting reports coming from there, and Alaska, I believe, but it's hard to say because some people say that what they've seen is more like a gigantic eagle, which I have received reports of those too. But it's not my specialty. I specialize in apparent modern pterosaurs. So grateful for all those who are participating. Jessica says, "Sir, I was watching the documentary on wolf, and they said that the hunters nearly finished the wolves from Earth. Likewise, the same thing happened to remaining dinosaurs too." Yes, that's a good point. My associates and I believe, those, when I say associates, I'm referring generally to those who've gone on expeditions or written books or scientific papers on modern pterosaurs like I have, and who've been very serious about this for many years. My associates and I believe that, in general, I can't speak for all of them in all the details, but in general, I'd say my associates and I believe that dinosaurs in many instances became extinct in the past because of human predation. Humans were interfering with them. Humans were attacking them. And it's understandable why people would do that in ancient times. And we have accounts and so on. Let me make a note here because I want to get into this subject of Beowulf. Because there is a relationship there with modern pterosaurs and possible modern dinosaurs in Europe. But that's a long story. We do have incredible, I just love these different accounts of legends and stories of various types in different parts of countries of Europe. Apparently there was a time just a few centuries ago when there were actually dinosaurs and pterosaurs in Europe. Generally they were called dragons and so on, and had the specific names that were dealing with particular descriptions, but the general concept was dragon. But that's just one name we have in English. There's many different names. Even in the English language, there's a number of words, different labels for these strange creatures that were said to exist just a few centuries ago. So thank you for all those participating in the chat. So Jessica says, therefore we have so many less species left of dinosaurs that we are left are in hiding or thriving. Yeah, that's a problem, and people might still try to kill them. I still have reports occasionally of somebody trying to shoot a Ropen or a modern pterosaur. Usually it's at night, so they don't hit the prey, unfortunately, but it's just distressing that people just indiscriminately try to kill these wonderful flying creatures. And John says that the Texas sighting you just referred to was in 2014 in between Laredo and Austin, Texas. Yes. Thank you very much, John. Yeah. That brings back the memory. I was just looking at it, but I didn't print it up because I was dealing with Europe tonight. But yeah. Between Laredo and Austin. That's true. Thank you very much. And I was just about to put that on a blog post. I didn't get around to it. So much happening today. Busy. But generally, I will put that on a blog post, and I'm very grateful that the Eyewitness, John, has agreed to let people know about that. I think it's very important. It was a really big one. That was a big sighting, and it was in the early morning, and I think it would have been after the sun was coming up, because as I recall, that was being the June in southern Texas, and around a little after 6 in the morning, as I recall. Is that what it was? So probably where the sun would have been coming up around then, so you got a better view of it. And Jessica says, "Sir, do you know that Mary, the famous scientist, was shocked to find out that a T-Rex bones have soft tissues, which she said could be 1,000 years old?" Yeah, I don't remember her last name. Schweitzer, is it? Mary Schweitzer or something like that. Is it Mary Schweitzer? I think it might be. It's close to that name. Yeah, she was shocked. And of course, the standard model is, oh, it has to be something weird going on because we know that all dinosaurs became extinct many millions of years ago. But that's just an assumption. There's no real direct evidence for any dinosaur going extinct at any time. Jessica says, and then she did the experiment with other dinosaur bones and found the same thing. Well, she did, follow-up and found similar results. But other people have done dinosaur bone testing in different ways, not just for finding soft tissue, but also Mark Hermitage, for example, but also in carbon-14. We dealt with that a few weeks ago, carbon-14 dating of dinosaurs, found it much, yes, John says yes. But I do have the right sighting in mind between Austin and Laredo. And we'll have to get into that too. We have to have a whole, let me write this down here. We must have one of these live streams just about Texas, because there's so many sightings from Texas. Also just one for California, but we might have already had one. This live stream chats, live stream videos. I'll put this here, Texas. Okay. So we have to have one of these Fridays. We have to run on Texas. But yeah, thank you for joining us. For those of you who are new and those who are coming back. Yes, it was Mary Schweitzer. Yeah, I thought it was, yeah. That's fascinating, but we need to keep in mind something that many scientists don't want to think about, is that there at least many dinosaurs have lived much more recently than millions of years. There's two separate types of evidence here. Two types of evidence for recent dinosaurs, and these are separate. They're not the same. One is the actual carbon dating in the interior of the bone, where scientists will dig out the interior, and they haven't done this until recent years, because people just assumed that they were ancient. So why should you try to date them directly if they're ancient? The carbon-14 will not work with very old things like that, millions of years old. The carbon dating is not for that. So why should we possibly do that? But it's based upon the assumption, the dogmatic idea that all dinosaurs and pterosaurs must have become extinct in all of their species. Boy, talk about dogma. All of their species, many millions of years ago. It's just total dogma, not scientific at all, not even remotely like scientific. But anyway, one of these two methods is to go in and dig in and get that, purify it, be sure that the testing is done properly so there's no impurities, and then test it for carbon-14 dating, the carbon dating process anyway. And then the people find that, yeah, they lived much more recently, in the thousands or tens of thousands. It's much more recently, depending on how you interpret carbon-14, but it's definitely not millions of years old. And now this soft tissue issue is completely different, but it comes to exactly the same conclusion. It's just adding on to this evidence. Soft tissue could not exist in this T-Rex bone for dozens of millions of years and still look like it's fresh. It just doesn't make sense at all. Makes no sense. And it's just the dogmatic approach, this dogma of millions of years ago extinction is just drilled into our culture. It's just horrible. So there's a new nonprofit that's coming up where we can help with this and helps people understand what's going on, the reality of modern dinosaurs and pterosaurs. I have neglected the chat. See who's talking. Yeah. Okay, yes, when Jessica's, that's why they were saying they can bring back dinosaurs back to life. Yeah, and there's problems with that idea of Jurassic Park kind of stuff. But anyway, I won't go into that tonight. By the way, sir, I play this game where I make dinosaur species, including pterosaurs. Oh, that's fun. One of those games. And Heinrich's realms, various folks have found blood, unfossilized bone, etc. Yeah. there's fascinating discoveries of involving things being much younger than they thought. Jessica then says, "Sir, do you think that Atsagoretrix could also be alive? That was supposed to be the biggest pterosaur." I don't know. That's not my specialty in those particular details with that species. But I don't know why it would be a lie, because in my opinion, let me get into this here. In my opinion, most species of pterosaurs that lived in the past have probably become extinct some time ago. The types we see nowadays are confined mostly to certain specific features, like the head crest of a large ropen, the long tail with the flange at the end. These features are so dominating, it's hard to imagine that there are many species of pterosaurs still living, at least when you compare that with how many lived in the past. I mean, so many different types. It just seems like they must have mostly become extinct at some time, and for the most cases. And now we're just fortunate that we have a small selection, in my opinion. I don't know for sure. I mean, we have so much to learn, but in my opinion, probably we just have a narrow selection of certain types that are limited in the number of species, but they are very widespread, and they're not apparently, for the most part, seeming to be their extinction, as far as I can tell. They just keep on flying around the world and shocking people from Western countries, and scaring people in non-Western countries for a different reason, not the same reason, not shocking in the same way. So let's see the chat. We have yeah, and William Hudson says, I believe they called it the Texas Big Bird. I do believe it was seen by several people in the Brownsville area. And I have a book on that called Big Bird. Yeah, I have a copy of that book. It's not a bad book. I recommend my own books myself, but that book deals mainly with Texas. Jessica says, Tyrannosaurus has so many species still unearthing in different places that I would love to see the alive species of Tyrannosaurus rex. Yeah, I know what you mean. We'll get into that soon, maybe tonight a little bit. If they're not all dead, they're or at least the general type. I don't mean Tyrannosaurus rex specifically, that species. I'm not saying that's still alive. But apparently there is at least one type of dinosaur that's similar to that type. We can get into that sometime. It's not extinct. I believe that the Earth is younger than people think. Yeah, I believe that too. Thank you, Marie. I think it's around 6,000 years old. Why are the dinosaurs found so close to the Earth's surface? Oh, well, that's a deep subject. Jessica says, Morrow, you could be right. I believe that too. Yeah, that's a deep subject. We don't usually get into that much, but please don't believe us. Yeah, Marie Christian, maybe there are portals in the invisible realm, so that's why the dinosaurs who are alive today are able to hide so well. Well, not really. They just, there's so many places on the earth that naturally animals hide anyway. It's just that this is another animal that is not observed much, and there's a lot of problems with that. But let me get to this. Jessica, it might be off topic, but do you think that dinosaurs and other beasts were created by fallen angels like that? Yeah, that is way off. I don't think we can get into that. Henry should know that dinosaurs were created on day 6. Yeah. Jessica, or maybe they could be placed on Earth like jungles and islands where it's hard to find them. Oh, that's definitely true. I guarantee you, I've searched for them in a remote jungle in one of the most remote places on the face of the Earth, and yeah, they can hide. Very easily hide. William, too many ancient stories and artifacts found depicting dinosaurs like creatures to say they all went extinct. Probably a lot of evidence gets covered up to protect the narrative. That's true, William. Yeah, that is true. And Marie Christian is Jessica, maybe both. Well, anyway, we are humans and one causing all the problems for other animals. That's a lot of truth to that, Jessica, yeah. Now, as to portals, I have this response. I've been examining these reports for 18 years, hundreds of reports from 5 continents, many, many countries. Can't even list the number of countries where I know of sightings of modern pterosaurs. It's just, I'm just amazed and thrilled when I think about all these places and these people from different parts of the world to witness these wonderful flying creatures. But generally, they hide in the ordinary places where animals and birds hide, not in any special supernatural sense, as far as I can tell. They act like normal animals that are physical and belonging to this world, and they eat fish a lot of times, and people see them catching fish or catching a bird. That happens more than once. I have more than one account in the United States alone of a modern pterosaur catching a bird in 2 different states, I believe, Ohio, and then there's another place, I don't remember what state it was, back east somewhere, where it caught some kind of waterfowl, maybe a duck perhaps, or something like that, as it dived down to this little pond and grabbed the poor bird before the bird could take off. Carried it off in its beak, as I understand. But yeah, they act like normal animals are predators, and they act like predators, and they don't act like they come from a different time, even if that was possible, which I doubt. I don't think that happens. I don't know. The reason why we kind of want to, some people want to think that about dinosaurs and pterosaurs coming from another time, some kind of portal of time travel, so that kind of thing, is because this idea of ancient extinction is so ingrained in us. It's so deeply ingrained into our culture and our thinking since early childhood that we assume that there must be some weird answer to this modern pterosaurs situation. But no, they're animals. There's a lot of animals that are incredible in this world, and we take them too much for granted, I think. Whales, wow. The blue whale, humpback whale, narwhal, all these different kinds of species of whales are just absolutely incredible. And they don't come from other worlds and other dimensions that some kind of come here and they're, because they're so weird. No, they're part of this world, as I believe pterosaurs are. That's my opinion. If you really want, if somebody really wants to believe that, well, I'm not going to argue or try to convince them of my opinions. Oh, now Jessica says, if someone sees the pterosaurs, can someone capture it like in a net or cage? Yeah, that's been tried. We can talk about that, Jessica, trying to catch pterosaur with a net that flips. Yeah, that's been tried in California, Central California before. It's not as easy as you might think. And the pterosaurs are not necessarily as stupid as we might think they are. Right? That hasn't worked, but it came close once. Yeah, and I read some more. If someone sees the pterosaur, can someone capture? Yeah. Sorry. Marie Christian, according to Admiral Byrd, his airplane was high-packed somewhere in the Arctic, and he was taken underground and saw a dinosaur. What I know is that the invisible portals are real, but I don't know about those stories. I don't deal with those. I just tell you what people tell me of what they've seen of them. A direct eyewitness, not other stories that are not direct. And Mary Christian said, cannot see them without eyes. So what do you think of pterosaur birds that were also hunted by humans? Yeah, unfortunately, probably so. We know Beowulf died when he attacked a large flying creature in Europe centuries ago, but the animal died too, but he died eventually. As the story goes, if the story is true, there could be some truth in it. Dinosaurs, dinos were dragons. So thank you for joining us, Amamissismos, something. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. But yeah, dinosaurs are dragons. There's a good point to that. And we should have a video just on that. Jessica, I think the real pterosaurs, before the word dinosaur was known as dragons. That's true, Jessica. The word dragon is much older. And Yeah, from what I've heard, I don't have a lot of information, but what I've heard, pterosaurs, at least some of them, at least some species, are more intelligent than we might suppose. They have a higher degree of intelligence than people would think they would. And William Hudson says, I read a story once about a mining crew finding a pterosaur being entombed in a stone, can't remember where. I didn't give it much credence, but it was very interesting. Okay, William Hudson, we can talk about that if you like. That was a story in the mid-1800s in London, in the London Illustrated News or something like that. And it's basically, there's a lot of falsehoods in that, a lot. I can't say for sure that absolutely everything is false in every detail, but there's a lot of things in that that just are very suggestive of the true story has no practical value. Somebody, whoever it was, took that the newspaper and they published it. But you know, I don't believe those details about it being entombed in rock and then breaking out of the rock or something and then coming alive again, then dying very soon after. It's I don't think that ever happened like that. But there are cases where pterosaurs in Europe have been found in caves. I believe that. So there may be a little grain of truth in that to some degree. Yeah, so let's get back to the live chat here. And I'm sorry if I missed something. I was going to explain something. Was it about a number of different things? Okay, it was invisible in its hand when it was grabbed my hand. I was grabbed by an invisible being in the broad daylight, and it was invisible, but I felt its hand when it grabbed my hand and lifted me off the ground as I was a feather injured my thumb. I don't know. I can't really speak to that. I do believe that there is a spiritual realm to our existence, of course. I believe in spiritual existence, but I'm just saying in my experience in general, modern Ropens and modern pterosaurs are not spiritual beings in general. That doesn't mean that there's nothing spiritual that's like that. It's just saying that the ones that I'm given in reports, they're animals and they behave like regular animals. And I won't go into all things about spiritual things because there's other places that can be covered, you know, other videos and media that could cover that kind of discussion. But I absolutely believe in this. There's spiritual nature to things, absolutely. Not the faintest doubt about that. But I deal mainly with the physical characteristics of these particular kind of animals. Some people call flying dinosaurs. And I could cover more from Europe, even though I have to talk off the top of my head. And you can see there's not much on the top of my head now. But there was a sighting report in Amsterdam many years ago. A man sent me an email. And he mentioned his sighting in the northern, as I call the northern section of Amsterdam. I've been there in Amsterdam before, many years ago when I was young. But it was flying over this neighborhood, and the man saw it as a pterodactyl. That's his report. I believe that he did see one. They're very uncommon to come out in daytime, but that was one. And then there's a number of sighting reports in England. Two of the more recent interesting ones that I found were in Shropshire. Shropshire is a section of England, generally kind of the middle of England. Part of it's a little close to Wales, but it's generally the middle area of England. And there's two different families that had a sighting. It was two types. One sighting was a man in a park in Shropshire, and another neighborhood in Shropshire. About maybe a year or half a year before or after, this family had a number of sightings. And I believe it's probably the same species, if not the same animal. Maybe the same animal that people have been seeing, the pterosaur in central England a few years ago. And it was seen by the mother and then seen by her son. The daughter was there in the backyard at the same time the son was, but she was in another part of the backyard and didn't see it. But she heard the sound it made, the call it made, the shriek or whatever it was. I don't recall how she described it. But that's definitely evidence that a few years ago at least, there was at least one pterosaur that was staying at least for a short time in that part of England. Get back to the chat. We have okay. Can pterosaurs lift up heavy animals such as bears or wolves or dogs or lions and so forth? Okay, why don't we get into that? Okay, there's been a scientific paper published, not by me, but by two scientists, and I did help publish part of the scientific paper, the one that's more about the bioluminescence part of Ropen's. But the other part was about Harold Schlusher from a university in Texas. He's passed away since then. But that part of the scientific paper was about how if a creature with a large wingspan was diving at a particular speed, and this is much bigger than a bird, much, much bigger, like the size of a ropen, the large ropen in Papua New Guinea, was dived with a certain speed, it could pick up a lot of weight, way, way more than 200 pounds, and lift it up in the air. That's theoretically based upon the area of the wings, the area of the wingspan, and the speed and the angle of the dive. That's a physicist, or two physicists that were involved in that scientific paper, and it could happen, and that would correlate with some reports in Papua New Guinea of adult humans being carried away by a ropen. We do have reports of that happening. But of course, that's theoretical in the sense that you have to deal with how would the animal carry it away, because a lot of pterosaurs known from fossils do not have very strong feet, and that wouldn't work well. That doesn't necessarily mean it'd be impossible, because I do know of something related to that indirectly. It's about this ropen that flew over a bridge in Antwerp, Ohio, in the middle of summer, hot summer day. And it was seen flying over, and it was chasing these sparrows, and it caught one of the sparrows, but not with its feet. It caught it with the beak, the mouth of the ropen, caught the sparrow. That's how it was done. Who knows if that has anything to do with the large ropens in Papua New Guinea who attack humans and kill humans? I don't know. But it's interesting to note the way that they figured that in the scientific paper about a modern pterosaur grabbing hold of a person, possibly, and lifting them up, even though if it's a heavy adult human. Oh, let's see. Okay, Jessica, sir, where in England I can find them now or can be seen? Well, I don't have anything in the last few months about England, Jessica. It's not like I get reports every month or anything like that, remotely like that. It's been a while since I've had a report from England, but that was in Shropshire. That was basically a series of sightings in Shropshire. And then just because I would love to travel there just to see the pterosaurs, even from great distance. Well, there are some problems with trying to go to a particular location to see a modern pterosaur like a ropen. The problem is basically how far away is it? How quickly can you get there? You know, I have a location just a few miles south of where I live here. Right now I'm speaking to you from the home that my wife and I rent in Murray, Utah. Then a few miles south of here is the town of Draper, Utah, also in the Salt Lake Valley. And we had a number of sightings of ropens there, generally at night, not always in nighttime, can be in daytime. And this is over a period of time. It's not in the same week at all, nothing like that. But the problem is that ropen might only come to that part of the Salt Lake Valley in Utah at particular times, maybe not even. We don't even know for sure that if it comes there every year, maybe just every other year, who knows. But one of the things that might attract it is this small cattle slaughterhouse, which has a smell coming out of it, which is, it could be attracting the animal. That's possible. But somebody's cat might have been picked up, eaten by it, possibly. in the backyard next door in that area of Draper a few years ago, and it's just made the horrible noise. The cat was just screeching so loud, and then the cat stopped. The cat became quiet. No more cat screeching. And then next door on the other side, the man was keeping chickens, and all of a sudden he came out there, and it's, you know, it's a yard. They were confined by the fence, but something had gotten in there and stomped them to death, stepped on them, killed them. I don't know if it's related, but these are two events on both sides of a backyard where there was a sighting of a gigantic ropen that flew over the house. The mother and son, 12-year-old boy, together, the two of them saw that ropen fly right over their heads, and that was scary. The boy did not want to be outside at night anymore, especially not that night, you know. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm not going to talk on issues of spiritual beings. We talk about physical animals that fly. Yancey Ricks, thank you for joining us tonight, Yancey. Is there any difference between European pterosaurs and American pterosaurs? Not that I know. Yeah, I haven't answered that question. That's a good question, Yancey. It's a good question. And there's another comment that says, aren't pterosaurs nocturnal? In general, absolutely, in general, they are. And here's the thing. We still have a lot to learn. We know that it's a ropen in Shropshire, that was in Shropshire not many years ago. It's definitely, we can tell it's a ropen. I don't think there's any doubt. But whether it's the same species of ropen as in the United States, I don't know. I do know that they can travel. They have similar characteristics in many countries around the world. And I don't think that every country has its own species. It doesn't make sense because there are not that many of them, and they can travel extensively. Oh, they can travel. True. They don't respect the borders, and they have no passports. You know, they just fly wherever they want to. And this generally is at night. Nocturnal, yes, absolutely, in a general sense. But you'll be aware that nocturnal animals occasionally will be seen in daylight. Things happen to animals and birds. Twice in my life, in the last few years, I've seen a large owl, which is normally nocturnal, out flying around when I'm driving in daylight. It does happen. It's just not the general case. So let's see where we are now. Oh, Jessica, chicken must be terrified to see a giant reptile with wings. Yeah, those poor chickens were stomped to death. I don't think that a ropen was trying to eat them. Maybe it thought it was competition and it was just angry and just killed them, and maybe, I don't know what happened really. That's speculation. Most questions involve living pterosaurs regarding time and elusiveness. Yeah, thank you for joining us, Q Dingo. Thank you very much. Delighted you're here again. Please feel free to make any comments you want. And Jessica says, does pterosaurs have any rivalry with bats? Well, the situation now we have is a little different as of a few weeks ago. It's about a month ago, something like that. Maybe it's about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I got a report that verifies what my associates and I have been thinking about some species of modern pterosaurs, that they chase and hunt bats. They eat bats. And I've been into this for years as more of a speculation or a conjecture that explains certain things. Now that we got an eyewitness report, I'm just thrilled. He sent me this report that he was out at night, and was this northern Alabama? Which one was that? I'm not sure now. They got 2 reports from that part of the South just in recent weeks. I get them confused now. But it was in that part of Alabama, you know, Georgia area. Out at night and driving, and he saw these 2 gigantic pterodactyls flying together in a coordinated way, chasing this bat. I was so delighted, because that verifies what we've been believing for some time and suspecting. We had this place in California, and I tell you about these men who were trying to catch pterosaurs with this special contraption with a net that was rigged in such a way that if it was triggered, it would flip over and the net would grab the pterosaur. Yeah, they got pretty close to capturing one once. At the end of it, the contraption whacked the Ropen or pterosaur, whatever it was, whacked it, and it got away, but it was close. But in that area, I was thinking, this is quite a few years ago, and I was thinking that may be a case where the pterosaurs are hunting bats at night, because the bats were flying all over there at a particular time at night, and the bioluminescent pterosaurs, apparently, if that's what they were, which we believe that's what they were, they're larger, and they were flying at the same place in the same time. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think they were hunting the bats. But there's no rivalry generally in the sense of the larger pterosaurs, because they just eat the bats. They have no fight with the bats. They just want to have a meal with the bats. Okay, let's get back to chat. And Valky says, "I would thank you for joining us, Valky. I will post soon, but did capture on Google Earth something huge flying into a cave. Looks like two lionfish on mountain. Its mouth is cave island off of South America." Well, thank you. Let us know about that. What you have in the image, if it's Google Earth. Thanks so much. Jucifer, hello to Big Run. Thank you for joining us, Jucifer. Yancy also says Europe has a lot of people in it. Does a lack of sightings in Europe imply a less significant population in Europe? Well, it's a good question, Yancy. That's I can see that line of reasoning. That we have a lot to learn, really. Don't know. Yet Europe in general, for many countries generally, especially Western Europe, is a Western cultural part of the world, and so they just take it for granted that pterosaurs became extinct millions of years ago. So they have the same problem we have in the United States and also Canada and Australia. How do you tell somebody if you saw a pterodactyl in that kind of a country, a Western country? It's a huge, huge problem. Valky says approximately 29 feet wide, 20 feet long, can be the shadow on ground also. Yeah, more likely it would be the shadow, I suspect, but yeah, it's just both of them would be equally very, very important. Yeah, see if you can get that image and save it, okay, on your computer or something, Valky. That sounds wonderful. Jessica says, does pterosaurs have any particular place where they fly to, like high mountains or something? Good question. It depends on the area and the particular sightings, and we still have so much to learn. Oh, so much we need to learn. An outlawed generation. Thank you for coming back, outlawed generation. Do you have any pterodactyl puppets? Not handy to show people. And Big Ron, 1995, thank you for coming. There's too much evidence to deny they don't exist. True, it's incredible evidence from all over the world, and it's from different cultures, different people that have different backgrounds, and different educational experiences, different religious beliefs. I mean, I have people, occasionally I have someone that I can tell from the conversation that they have no doubt that the standard models of evolution, they believe standard models of evolution, but they still saw a pterodactyl that's alive, You don't have to be a biblical creationist to see a living pterosaur, but sometimes they will be more likely to talk about it then. Perhaps I'm speculating, because it seems to be a number of different people with different religious beliefs that have similar sightings. So we're talking about sightings in Europe, pterosaur sightings for those who are new, including one in a desert in Spain a number of years ago. I got that eyewitness report quite a few years ago. A smaller one, a wingspan wingspan of only about 3 or 4 feet. What was it? Yeah, 2 to 3 feet. The wingspan only 2 or 3 feet with that one. It had a long tail. It was a Ropen. Generally, if a modern pterosaur has a long tail, it generally would be a Ropen, and some people actually see the flange at the end of the tail, and they describe it like a diamond shape or pterosaur shape or so on. But thank you so much for everyone for being here and participating. Yeah, thank you so much. Could you walk us through how the folks almost caught a pterosaur? Okay, Yancy, yeah, that is interesting. Huh? Yeah, it was. Here's the thing. It was in Central California. If I had more details, I don't know if I really want to tell you, because some of those involved really for years and years and years. They want to keep it secret so they can investigate it themselves, and they don't want anybody coming trying to shoot them, because that did happen. People trying to shoot the things at night. And if they would have kept on doing that, not only might they have killed one or more modern pterosaurs, but they might have shot one of the people that was investigating it. I think I can tell you this, okay? And I don't want any too much secret stuff, because it's Central California. It's the same area where the cryptozoologist, oh dear, his name slips my mind. Anyway, he had a wonderful sighting at night, and Scott Norman is his name. This young man unfortunately passed away a few years ago. A health problem came up, and I think he lost track of his medicine, didn't get his prescription refilled, and had something happen, and he died at a very young age. Tragic, but it has nothing to do with his sighting of a modern pterosaur. In the same area, some of my associates had set up this contraption where they were trying to get this net thing to flip over at the right time and catch a pterosaur, because they'd be flying through there. They'd be bioluminescent. They'd be glowing. And I believe they were trying to catch bats. That's what they were doing. The bats were flying around, and these pterosaurs flying around, and they did hit, I mean, the outside part of the, I don't know if it was metal or not, I don't know. But the outside part that was not supposed to hit the pterosaur, it hit the pterosaur. It's supposed to be the net that would grab it, and so they would catch it. But I'm not sure what they would have done with it. That would be a big problem. I don't know how well prepared they would have been for being successful. You know, who knows? But it hit the thing, and it got away. That's mostly what I know about that situation, though. The owner of the property, however, he was out in daytime sometime before that, and had seen one in daytime. I think it might have been sleeping in possibly a orchard or something like that. I mean, it's possible a vineyard, you know, I don't know. No, don't take me too seriously and try to find this place. Not good. There's a lot of places that could qualify in that part of California anyway. And I know something about that part of California. I traveled through there many times. But that's basically what happened, and they missed, but it was close. I wish I could transform into pterosaur. Somebody shout transform when I'm in the closet and dress up like a pterosaur. Okay. Cave Squeaker. Well, thank you for joining us, Cave Squeaker. That's interesting. Warren Olson. Do you think that because of heating of Earth's surface is the cause of these are flying these days? Well, I don't see any evidence that the changing in the temperature of the Earth has anything to do with sightings. What basically has happened is not the environment change, so now we have pterodactyls flying around. It's not that. It's that we have, for a number of years, and I've tried to do this myself with over 1,000 web pages and blog posts, and now way over 100 videos about modern pterosaurs, trying to get attention, and other people have done some of this too. It's not just me. But because the internet is expanding so much in the last couple of decades or so, we have many people that would not ever communicate about their sightings, and now they're telling people. And they're finding other people that have seen what they've seen. So that gives them courage to tell what they've seen. And it just multiplies and multiplies. And so that's what's been happening over many years. It's not having to do with the Earth climate, I don't think. I really doubt it, because these things have been around 1944, remember, in New Guinea and in the jungle of the mainland of New Guinea, just west of Finchhaven, when two American soldiers went out to try to go visit a village, and in a clearing of about 100 feet diameter, they saw this gigantic, well, one of them called pterodactyl, just take off, run, and then take off into the air. It had a very long tail. Dwayne Hodgkinson gave a rough estimate for the tail. He said at least 10 or 15 feet long for the tail. That was a big, and the wingspan was about twice that much. Getting in the general neighborhood of close to 30 feet. That's the size of a small private airplane. And he said it was the same basic wingspan as his Piper Tripacer that he had after the war, after World War II. Yeah, he knows airplanes. He was a flight instructor for many years, many thousands of flight time hours. He knows airplanes, he knows sizes. It was a small clearing that they were in. They must have been pretty close to it, because the dimension of that clearing was about approximately 100 feet in diameter. That's pretty close encounter. It had to have been. Wow, that's a fascinating thing. We have many videos that I've been involved with about Dwayne Hodgkinson. Unfortunately, he passed away. The World War II veteran passed away a few years ago. And it looks like, see that we can find areas you speak of. I'll start looking to see what I can find in areas you speak of. Thank you, Volky. In case I've never had a sighting experience, but I hope I do. I look to the skies all the time. Yeah, Cave Squeaker, keep looking. I highly recommend it. John said, hopefully the History Channel will pick you up and make a series about your research and eyewitness sightings. Yeah, I occasionally get a TV show, and actually a few weeks ago I had some possibility of an A&E channel. Possibly, I don't know how that's going to go. I haven't heard from them in a few weeks. And I have been interviewed a couple times for television, but to have that actually go into to TV is something else. You can have you film for TV, and it actually sometimes doesn't actually get on TV. And then Jessica says, John, History Channel would never show the evidences on their channels. It depends on how it's covered. This is a good point, and it depends on the way that they cover it. It could be thought of as a phenomenon, a human phenomenon, which is a different aspect of why would people say they saw these, and why would somebody spend a lot of time writing books and things about it. And that would be a human interest, and why do people believe in modern pterosaurs, and that they could cover something like that, no problem. But I understand what you're talking about, and actually approaching it directly is something else. Jessica, why that could be a possibility. Jessica, why wouldn't they? Okay, and Volky says, we'll stay in touch, like your work. Thank you very much, Volky. Thank you for coming here. Let me see if I can get your name right. Volky Neela. Thanks for being part of us, our little village, a community of investigators and commenters on this incredible group of sightings that we have around the world, not just Europe, but all other parts of the world as well. We generally start these at about pretty close to 4:30 in the afternoon, Utah time, which is Central Time, not Central Time, which is Mountain Time, 4:30 Mountain Time in the afternoon in the United States. And we generally last for about 2 hours. Tonight, possibly not quite that long, but we are delighted that all of you that have come to visit us. So this subject is the Ropen in Europe, recent pterodactyls. That includes the sightings in Rome, Italy, and Spain. Quite a few sightings in Spain. The Rome, Italy one was just a recent report I got earlier this year, or last year, was it? I lost track. Well, the sighting was actually December of 2019 is when they sent this report in. Yeah, it's been a little longer than I thought it was. But then we've had reports in Spain, including this desert. I'm not positive it's the same desert as shown here. It's a desert in general. That's what this is, a desert in Spain. But it was at nighttime. It was after a music concert, and this man from England was a tourist there in England at the time, in Spain at the time, and he saw this, well, what we might think of as small ropen fly overhead, and the lighting from underneath shone on it so that he could see it clearly. It's not a bat, not a owl, nothing remotely like that. Had to, no feathers, long tail. Well, we also have sightings in other areas. In Spain, many sightings were reported. This was, let me see, this is Spain number 1. Let me get that. This was, I see, in 1990s, the middle 1990s, when the newspapers covered this. Many people saw these in many different cities and towns in Spain, in that part of Spain, and they were shocked. One of the estimates for wingspan was 3 to 5 meters, which is, that's a, that's 16 feet at least. And another one to estimate between 3 and 15 meters, which is, getting up to the maximum of maybe, or in the neighborhood of 50 feet. Dozens of feet in a wingspan. That is incredibly large size. But they said of prehistoric pterodactyls, one of the things that comes to mind with Eyewitnesses there in Spain in the mid-1990 time period. So, thank you. Let me just check to see how things are going generally on the live stream. We have more than usual number of persons here now. At least we did a few minutes ago. I started talking about when we're going to end. I shouldn't do that because then people drop off. But glad that you are here. If you're still here, thank you so much for staying with us and for participating and asking questions and making comments. I really appreciate that. Delighted you're here. The reports in Europe go back in time too. Actually, these are not just things that have happened in recent years or decades. I believe that, in my social, I believe that it goes way back in history, but we have different names for them. Different names for these creatures that are reptilian-like, and I call them dragons and other names. We probably should have a whole, I'm going to write this down. We should probably have a live stream chat about some of these names and legends of creatures in Europe. Let me put this down. Names of dragons in Europe. Okay, got it down. That's something we could cover, and I need to do some research on that. But just in England alone, there are several different names. I mean, Great Britain, I should say the island of Great Britain, including Wales, and Scotland. There are different names for these dragon-like beings. Somewhat, I suspect that it's not all to do with the exact appearance or makeup or form and features of the animals, but how that people got to see them. From a certain angle, you might see a modern pterosaur like a few centuries ago, call it a dragon or whatever, and you wouldn't notice the legs and you think it doesn't have legs. Or you might notice 2 legs and you think it only has 2 legs, and somebody else would see that the wings have sort of like hands in them, and they say, well, it had 4, arms or legs, and not to go into the details that it actually, those are wings, not arms. But that's a situation with eyewitnesses, the way they report things and how they see things. Okay, let's see. Yeah, thanks so much for being here. And next, Cypher, thank you for coming back. I'm delighted you're back with us. You've been here before. Because the scientific community, it had let that happen because of their beliefs on evolution, and all that, the theory of 65 million years ago, and if they did do a documentary by the standard scientific authorities, they would keep emphasizing the extinction of 66 or 65 million years ago. They would keep emphasizing that. So that's what they do. Dogma, not science, really. And Nick says, perhaps ancient reports of dragons have some grounding in Ropens. Yes, absolutely. Dragons, certainly. I mean, look at the end of the tail with the dragons. Often some kind of structure at the end of the tail, and Ropens have a structure at the end of the tail. I don't think it's a coincidence. No coincidence. And William Gray says, Bible, Jesus made Adam. Why some pterosaurs lived, pterodactyl lived? Oh, well, that's a deep subject, I suppose, getting into something like that. In general, dragons were terrestrial. Yeah, they fly, but they don't spend all their time flying like one kind of bird. A frigate bird, I believe, spends almost all its life on the wing, just gliding over the ocean. It doesn't come down very often, just stays in the air. But pterosaurs are not necessarily like that. Wide Gauge says, I'm sure the term dragon covered a variety of reptilian forms, some with more legs than others, though I don't know. There are different perceptions might have a case, but William says, okay, good question. Jessica says, Sir Bayeux was found in England on Isle of Wight. Bariox. Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that. I don't call that in that word. And William says the lizard is to be like a dragon. Great lizards or giant lizards, perhaps. They have different words for them. And Nick Cipher says, if I'm not mistaken, dinosaurs were called dragons before its current description. Yes, absolutely, Nick. Yeah. Anything like a pterosaur would have been called a dragon, absolutely. Or some similar word, there are different words. That general kind of word. Komodo dragon? Well, I don't know. That's really a different kind of animal. It's not my specialty. But yeah, and let's see. Now let's see, next. Leathery wings, long tail, reptilian appearance, Ropen dragon. Yeah, there's similarities in descriptions. Yeah. And Jessica says, Bariox was similar to Spinosaurus, but smaller. Next says, flightless like the worms. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we're getting a lot of things about these different kind of creatures in old times. But delighted that you all joined us here and participated. I think we need to call it a night now. I've got a lot of things. I need to get prepared for other things, and I'm working on another video for a regular uploaded video on YouTube. But delighted you're here. Thank you so much. Come join us again. These Friday afternoon live stream chats start at pretty close to 4:30 in the afternoon on every Friday. That's the Utah time, which is Mountain time. So it'll be a couple hours later in Eastern time, or an hour earlier, 3:30 in California time, Pacific time. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll call it a night for now. And God bless until we